And that freaking happened. Son of a... God dang it. Look at that, sun's down. Storm's coming. Here's my little toolkit survival package. Rope and a wrench. This worked on my old motor, so hopefully it's the same with this new one. Dang it, dang it, dang it! The motor just puttered on me and died, otherwise I wasn't going to shut it off. As it's slowly pushing me out to sea. Just got to make sure, don't drop any of the nuts, don't drop the wrench, don't drop the starter. Take my time, don't screw this up. I'm slowly drifting out to the freaking sea. I can hear thunder now, golly. Oh, I think I got it. It's got tension there, so it won't jump off the track once it starts. Alrighty. We might survive. Wait, is that the lights to Cuba? Alright, let's do that again. Want to go home. Come on, baby. Yeah! Oh, hey! I'm not gonna die! Replacing the starter cord on a Suzuki 2.5 horsepower outboard motor. Got a little wear mark there, so we need to replace this cord. Now the main issue with these Suzukis is that you're going to get breakages because of right here, this little wear mark, and I'll show you why that occurs. As you'll see here, there's this little metal ring here where the starter rope enters the actual starter, and as you'll see, it gets corroded and starts rusting, and then it creates a rough surface, so that pull cord, when it's at rest, is sitting and rubbing right on that little rust area, and it basically burns the rope. This is my old outboard motor, but it's the same existing problem with my brand new one. That's something that Suzuki needs to look at, maybe making it aluminum or stainless steel so you don't have to worry about that corrosion and creating a wear spot. Now before you get started with any disassembly, you want to take a look at the amount of tension length that is on the pull handle. Now this part of the tension here is strictly to keep a little bit of a tension on the line so the cord doesn't jump off the pulley. We roughly have maybe about 5 inches of play there, and then from that point on, then the wings engage to the motor, and then it actually starts pulling on the motor on the compression stroke there. So we know we just want about yay amount of slack there. Now I'm basically going to recreate the problem that I had, is that right at that wear spot, it basically gone, and then what happens is that rope gets sucked inside because of that tension that's left there, and you can't access it. So once that breaks, you're done. You either gotta fix it or put the motor away and start paddling. Fortunately, it's a very easy fix. All it requires is either have a 10mm wrench or a 10mm socket and ratchet, and then some sort of cordage. This is just some nylon cordage I got at West Marine. It's probably about 2/3 of the diameter of the original rope, but it works fine. It was recommended to me by one of the guys that does a lot of outboard work there, and that's all he uses. So I got a long length of it, and I just cut off what I need and primarily what I use it for. In the video, the way I have it in my emergency box, because I want one on the water just in case, is I just take the cord, tie it to the wrench, and then just make a bunch of spirals around it and just have a long length of it so it's all together and ready for any emergency. disassembly of the actual starter head is very easily. There's 3 bolts. There's one right here, and then on the other side, one right there. Once you have the 3 bolts loosened up or taken off, basically you can lift the starter straight out. And there you go. Now anytime you're disassembling something, it's always good to have a general idea of the concept of how it works. In this instance, we've got basically the starter mechanism, and then you've got the motor with the flywheel, which basically this will actually turn the pistons of the motor there. How these two engage is these plastic pieces will basically sit here, and then when you pull the starter cord, you'll see these 2 wings will actually kick up, and they sit up higher. They engage the flywheel here, which starts turning the motor, and once it starts and when you release the handle, they disengage, and then they go down below and they disengage from the flywheel, and that way the motor can run by itself. That's why if you ever start your motor and then you actually accidentally pull on the handle for the starter cord, you'll hear like a kind of that's basically these wings starting to hit the flywheel there, so don't do that. But that's generally how it works. So now let's disassemble and reassemble this cordage. Now before we go any farther, there's 2 spots that you want to keep your eye on. One is where the actual cord is tied to the starter wheel, and that is right here. You can kind of see it's a perfect circle, except for this one here, it's got a straight spot. That's where the cordage is tied off, and that's the anchor for it. And then the second area is here, which is the port where the cord actually comes out of the starter there. So it basically comes into it and then wraps around this flywheel here and then gets tied off there. Now I'm just going to pull this cord off because this is cut now and too short, broken, whichever. Okay, and then all that's left is that it's basically tied as a stop knot there. So what I'm going to do is get some pliers and then just pull it all out. So I'm just going to grab the knot and then just pull the rope right through that hole there. Okay, now it's time to run the rope through there. So we'll go through the entry point there. See there? And then we want to find that flat spot where the hole is, because that's where we need to tie the stop knot. And try to just work it through there. See, it comes out there. And then we just need to pull it out, give it some slack, and then we're just going to make a bunch of overhand knots to make a bulky knot that's going to stop it from pulling through that hole there. The 2 of them there is enough, and that'll be our stop knot, so it can't go anywhere. Tuck that in there, and boom, good to go. Next, we're going to wind the cordage onto the pulley, but first we need to preload the spring. You want tension on it with no rope on the actual pulley, so then when you release it, it pulls loads the pulley with the rope. Now there's a couple of different ways to do it. You could, before you tie the knot and the rope in there, you could preload it, then run the rope through, tie the knot, and then release it. What I like to do is to tie the knot first, basically because you only have 2 hands, and then pull the cord out so it's just tied there, and then from here I can start spinning it and getting that load, because as you spin it you got to hold on to it, otherwise it's going to just release. So now I'm just going to twist it up and get that spring preloaded, and you'll see that rope is not twisting on the pulley there. Okay, now the spring is totally wound up. I basically hit the end point there. You don't have to go all the way to the end, but going towards the end will allow it to pull as much rope as possible. Now what I'll do is I'll take the end of the rope and run it through our exit point in the cover there. Pull that through. Get it onto the pulley there, and then as I release this, it's going to start pulling that rope, and you want to hold a little bit of a tension so it goes on there smoothly, and that's just the spring pulling it and retracting, and you just keep going until it stops, and there you go. So that's fully loaded. Now the reason why that initial part of knowing the tension on the handle is that you want to make sure that there's no slack that builds up, which will allow the rope to come off that pulley and then get twisted up and then you can't start the motor because it'll just unwind. So you want to make sure you keep tension on that so it doesn't jump off the tracks. But there you can kind of see how that starter works. It's disengaged now. As you pull the starter cord, it kicks up those two wings. Now they're sitting up about 1/2 inch. That will engage the flywheel here, and that'll start turning the motor. And then as you pull, that turns the motor. Once the motor starts, you let go, and then you'll see how those wings are engaged. Now they disengage and they sit down, and that releases these from the flywheel, and the motor can just run by itself. So that's kind of how it works there. So we're done. Now we're ready to start assembly. Now it's just a matter of reassembly, so you just stick it on there. And it'll just sit, and then just bolt it down, snug, but not overly tight. Alright, once the starter is mounted, now we could run the starter line through the cover. Don't put the handle on yet until you got the cover on. Okay, and there it's ready to go. Always keep tension on it so it doesn't jump off that pulley there. Now we just need to mount the handle. Now we just need to tie the rope to the handle. Basically the way it works is it runs through the one end of the handle, comes out the other side, and it ties to a little metal bracket there. My original metal bracket disintegrated, so I just used this cut off aluminum piece of tubing there and just tie it, and then that jams against, sits in there, and then that's what holds it on. Okay, so now we need to tie the handle, but remember we always want to have this on the tension. So we don't want it just loose like that so it's dangling there. That's a risk of that rope jumping off that pulley. So what we want to do is tie it so there's probably 3 or 4 inches. So when it does recess back in, the handle jams against there, and then it's nice and solid. And then we have some still free play before the motor engages. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just run the rope through the handle. Pull it through there. And then that's just that sitting slack right there. And that's right about there. So if I wanted 0 tension, that's right about there, but I want to add some tension. So I'm going to pull this and then probably end up having the knot right about there. So that when it sits in there and I let go, it's on tension there. So that's just about right. So now I just need to knot it up. Now you don't need anything fancy, just a couple of overhand knots. There. That's good there. Bunch of knots. Push it back in there. And there we go. So we got enough tension that it's going to shut on itself there. You don't want it to be hanging. You want it to snap back and then stay solid. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video. Although this is a Suzuki 2.5 horsepower, the actual starter mechanism is pretty much similar to all pull start outboards, lawnmowers, go-karts, so don't be afraid to give those a shot. Might be a few cosmetic differences, but general principles are the same. For my next video, I'm going to do a comparison between my 10-year-old 2010 Outboard 2.5 and the new 2018 one there, and what the differences are between them and why I use the old one pretty much 9 times out of 10 on when I go out fishing. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video.